What's up, fantasy fans? As always, I forgot to raise the mic, and I'm Shay from the channel Zachary Shay. And today I want to talk to you about if you follow Broken Binding on Instagram, or if you're plugged in with like the deluxe edition scene of fantasy, you probably saw the Broken Bindings edition of The Devils coming this summer by Joe Abercrombie. I already pre-ordered it, but you know I'm going to get that special edition as well. Super awesome, so badass. But in this video, I wanted to kind of talk about what I would view as good things to hold you over till we get that Devils, till we get that new Joe Abercrombie. If you're caught up with Joe Abercrombie and you want more authors and more works of fiction that are similar in vein to the First Law and to just Joe Abercrombie's kind of like dark, gritty, but also comedic type of storytelling, type of atmosphere, then I'm going to be bringing you a few authors that are similar in vein to Joe Abercrombie. Real quick, going to get this out of the way. I will not be going over Game of Thrones. I will not be going over Malazan, and I will not be going over Gentlemen Bastards. I feel like if you found my channel, you already are aware of those. And also, Broken Empire by Mark Lawrence and The Red Queen's War by Mark Lawrence are also ones that I feel like are very obvious. Not obvious, like I do think Mark Lawrence is a more intimate style, whereas Joe Abercrombie has this multi-POV. But, you know, nobody's gonna like click on this video and be like, what? What's Lies of Locke Lamora? If you found my channel, odds are you know what that book is. First up, I want to go with, so this author originally started publishing this series traditionally. Sales were not there, so he had to indie publish the rest. And I'm talking about Michael R. Fletcher's Manifest Delusion series. Of all his series, this is the one that most closely resembles Joe Abercrombie. Book 1 is Beyond Redemption. I don't have it with me. Book 2 is The Mirror's Truth, and Book 3 is A War to End All. Bedecked reminds me so much of Logan Nine Fingers at times. You know, he's very reminiscent of that. And then Stellan reminds me so much of Pharaoh Maljan. So if you enjoyed Pharaoh and Logan, then I really think you're going to enjoy Stellan and Bedecked. So yeah. Check this out. It's a world where belief defines reality. So the delusional are the ones that are powerful and can control the different, magical aspects of this world. All right. Then we have, if you were to blend Tolkien with Joe Abercrombie, you would get The Forgetting Moon. Now, the original First Law trilogy did feel like a take on Tolkien. You definitely, especially in Before They Are Hanged. Yeah, in the second book of the trilogy, we have that quest fantasy, and it feels very much like, he's emulating Tolkien, but this is like just as dark and comedic and gritty as Abercrombie, but it leans into the classical a little bit more. We have Vale, which are basically elves. We have Ogles, which are very similar to orcs, just a little vampiric, and we have dwarves. And, this classical world, the Five Isles feels so real and so vivid. And the characters, man, these characters are so phenomenal. Absolutely love them. I don't think unlike the last entry, there's not as many easy, like one-to-one, like, oh, this character's like this character. But just the overall tone, especially like Liz Hen and Doki, their dialogue between each other and their kind of witty banter reminds me a lot of, say, like Ricka with Shivers, like they're just with each other, and it's very, very comedic and very entertaining. All right. And then I actually don't have this series. I'll try to put it on the screen somewhere. But I do have his other series, War Eternal, which I also think is really good for fans of Mark Lawrence, Broken Empire. This is War Eternal series, but his First Earth saga feels so First Law coded. The Blackthorn reminded me so much of Logan Nine Fingers, and is probably my favorite version of a Logan Nine Fingers type character. I don't know. I really enjoyed the Blackthorn. I liked him a lot. I think he's a little bit easier to root for than Logan at times. But he was really good. I thought the Inquisitor character was very similar to Glokta while still being very different. It's sounding like this is a 1-to-1, and I do think, it being his first published work, he probably had First Law in mind when he wrote it. And there are definitely similarities between the First Law and the First Earth saga. Like it's probably the most 1-to-1 similar series that I have read to the First Law, but I still felt like the tone of the world was distinctly different. But that is probably the most similar series I have found to the First Law. All right, and then next up, I do not have it with me, but I will put it somewhere on the screen once more. I think the Red Rising saga, specifically books 5 and 6. While book 2, I feel like hit that grim dark level, it wasn't really till books 4, 5, and 6, especially book 5, that it really felt Abercrombie-esque. Like, Pierce Brown has always had that killer in him ever since book 1. But, book 1 kind of felt like it was trying to ride that YA line. Book 2 was like, okay, we're adult, we're dark fantasy. Then book 5 is like, oh, we're grim dark. We're Abercrombie level grim dark. Like, he's not just got that killer in him. He's got that brutalist. Like, he's just able to really gun for your emotions in Dark Age. Pierce Brown, Red Rising saga. In Dark Age, Pierce Brown is able to really, just pinpoint what you care about and systematically attack it. But much like Abercrombie, Pierce Brown, the dialogue between Severo and the Howlers, and Darrow's relationship with Cassius, there are comedic moments to keep it from being full-blown nihilist. 2 more picks. I'm going to go with Berserk by Kentaro Miura. Now, with a caveat, Berserk, amazing grimdark fiction at its best. I feel like without Berserk, we wouldn't have half of these amazing grimdark series. I will say, though, Abercrombie's comedy always lands. Everyone I've just mentioned, their comedy always lands. Kentaro Miura, love him. Second favorite manga of all time. He cannot do comedy. Puck and Isidro annoy the hell out of me. His comedy is not good for my own taste. I know there are fans out there that enjoy them, but I found them insufferable. But I also, like, even with they're what kept Berserk from being a 10, and Berserk's still like a 9.5 for me overall as a series. If it weren't for Isidro and Puck, it probably would be my favorite manga of all time, but One Piece wins because One Piece's comedy is actually funny. So yeah, and then my final pick is probably the most obscure. It's either this or The Ties That Bind that I mentioned earlier, but obscure for fantasy readers, and that is Seven to Eternity by Rick Remender, art by Jerome Openna. I do not have the editions with me, but this is a high fantasy, so it's unlike First Law on that. It's high fantasy, much like Five Warrior Angels, The Forgetting Moon, Brian Lee Durfee's book. Much like this, it's Seven to Eternity is high fantasy, but it is, our main character of Adam Osidis reminds me a lot of Joe Abercrombie's kind of like tortured heroes. Like he reminded me a lot of, Leo from the Age of Madness series. He has a lot wrapped up in his family name and the image he needs to keep. And I do think he's a better done character than Leo. I think everybody by the end of the First Law saga, or like the Age of Madness trilogy, hated Leo, whereas Adam, I feel like, is a little bit harder to pinpoint how you feel about him. But yeah, I would say that Seven to Eternity is a mix of, the world, like the not the world as in like the physical aspects, the magical aspects, but in terms of the tone, it's like if you took Joe Abercrombie and combined it with Justin Lee Anderson's Eden Saga, maybe with the dash of, I don't know, I don't want to say Berserk, but it's this high dark fantasy that has very morally gray characters, and I just don't think this is probably the biggest stretch of this, and Berserk are the biggest stretches. But if you like dark comedic and you like multi POV and you like just really well done grimdark, I don't see a lot of grimdark fantasy graphic novels. If there are more, please comment down below and let me know, because I'm always looking for more obscure comics that, 7 to Eternity, the average comic book fan will not know what you're talking about. It's not like you're talking about Batman or Superman. And it tells such an amazing grimdark story. And if all these grimdark fans were able to give Seven to Eternity a try, I feel like they would be pleasantly surprised. All these series, I think, would be perfect for Joe Abercrombie fans. And if I had to give my most similar, I would probably say The Ties That Bind trilogy by Rob J. Hayes. But if I had to say, I feel like it's most similar, and that might be to its detriment because some people might think it's too similar. I don't think that. I think it was perfect, and I liked it just as much as First Law almost. But I do think if you want something slightly different, slightly more different, while still being very similar in tone, then these two are your best bet. All right. Thanks, fantasy fans. Peace.